Welcome back, everyone. Have you ever wondered how a single, seemingly ordinary coin could hold a story so extraordinary, so layered in history, mystery, and rarity, that it could be tied in collector lore to a value as staggering as $118 million? Because the tale of the 1944 wheat USA coin is not just the story of a small copper disc, but a journey through the turbulent final years of World War II. The ingenuity and occasional errors of the United States Mint, and the feverish passion of coin collectors who scour every inch of the numismatic world for that one perfect piece. And as we begin peeling back the layers of this coin's legend, you'll see how something struck in the millions could still contain a few rare survivors that turned the market upside down. The story starting in 1943, when the U.S. Mint temporarily abandoned the traditional copper alloy used for Lincoln cents and switched to steel coated with zinc, a decision driven by wartime necessity, since copper was needed for ammunition and other critical military supplies. But that change was never meant to be permanent, and in 1944, with the tide of the war turning and copper availability improving, the Mint returned to producing pennies from a copper-based alloy, this time recycling spent shell casings collected from battlefields and military training ranges. A fascinating detail that alone gives the 1944 cents a connection to the war effort unlike any other year, yet in the immense logistical process of striking hundreds of millions of these coins across the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, errors occurred that would define numismatic dreams for generations, the most famous being the accidental striking of 1944 dated cents on leftover steel planchets from 1943, an incredibly rare transitional error that resulted in only a tiny handful of steel 1944 cents known from each mint, with estimates ranging from as few as a dozen to no more than 30 per mint, making them some of the most sought-after coins in all of U.S. history. And these are not just theoretically valuable. They have sold at auction for hundreds of thousands of dollars each depending on condition, with the very finest specimens pushing into the millions. And when you consider the mythology that has grown around coins of extreme rarity and perfect preservation, it's easy to understand how in theory a unique, one-of-a-kind specimen, perhaps a flawless, uncirculated, perfectly struck 1944 steel cent from an unrecorded mint or on an exotic off-metal planchet, could become the stuff of legend and speculation, with some enthusiasts claiming that if the right coin were to emerge in the right market, its price could spiral to the kind of jaw-dropping figure like $118 million that we often associate more with famous paintings or historic artifacts than with coins. And while that number may be as much about dream as about market reality, the passion that fuels such speculation is very real, driven by both the tangible history and the intangible thrill of the chase. And the 1944 wheat cent offers more than just the steel anomaly to fuel collector frenzy, because even among the standard copper cents there are error types that can command staggering prices, from dramatic double-die obverse varieties, where the date and lettering show clear duplication visible without magnification, to repunched mint marks in which the letter D or S was accidentally punched into the die more than once, leaving overlapping impressions that can be spotted by the trained eye, to off-center strikes where a significant portion of the design is missing, replaced by a blank crescent of planchet, to broad strikes in which the coin expands beyond its normal diameter due to striking outside the restraining collar, and die breaks or cuts where parts of the design are obscured by raised metal caused by fractures in the die. Each of these errors becoming far more valuable when paired with exceptional preservation, and preservation is where the grading scale used by the numismatic community comes into play, because the difference between a circulated coin worth a few cents and an uncirculated coin worth thousands can come down to subtle distinctions in luster, strike sharpness, and absence of contact marks, with coins graded MS-68 or higher being so rare that advanced registry set collectors will pay extraordinary premiums to secure them, especially when it comes to a date as historically resonant as 1944. And speaking of history, the Broader context of this coin only deepens its appeal because the Lincoln Cent series, introduced in 1909 to honor the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, had by 1944 already become an icon in American pockets, its wheat ears reverse design symbolizing prosperity and agriculture. Its obverse portrait of Lincoln crafted by Victor David Brenner standing as a reminder of unity and perseverance. And in 1944 those symbols carried special weight as Americans yearned for the war's end and a return to normal life, making the coins not just currency but small, circulating morale boosters. And knowing that some of those coins might have been struck on metal reclaimed from the front lines adds a near-poetic sense of continuity between the sacrifices of war and the everyday exchanges of peace. But as with all great collectibles, it is the interplay between the ordinary and the extraordinary that creates value. For while a typical 1944 copper cent might pass unnoticed in pocket change, the rare variations and flawless examples rise like hidden peaks above a vast plain, and the hunt for them becomes a quest in itself, with collectors attending coin shows, scouring estate sales, bidding in high-stakes auctions, and even searching rolls of pennies from banks in hopes of discovering an overlooked gem. And when a major auction house announces the sale of a high-grade or rare 1944 cent, the buzz reverberates across collector forums, YouTube channels, and social media groups, sometimes drawing in newcomers who are astonished to learn that a penny could be worth more than their car, their house, or in the most extreme and speculative cases, more than most people will earn in a lifetime. And it's in this environment that stories of $118 million valuations take root, fueled by a mix of genuine rarity, historical romance, competitive collecting, and the human love of a good treasure hunt. And while skeptics might point out that no documented sale has reached that level, the truth is that in collectibles markets, value is ultimately determined by what the most motivated buyer is willing to pay at the moment of sale, and history shows that with enough desire and enough money, price records can and do get shattered in ways that once seemed impossible. So the 1944 wheat cent remains both a tangible artifact of America's past and a canvas for dreams of unimaginable fortune. A symbol of how even the smallest objects can carry within them vast stories, and if those stories capture the right mix of history, rarity, and beauty, they can become priceless. And if you're as fascinated by these tales as I am, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us as we continue to explore the most incredible treasures the numismatic world has to offer. Next, 1954 wheat penny. Welcome to today's deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins, where history, minting artistry, and unexpected mistakes collide to create treasures worth unimaginable sums. And in this special feature, we're uncovering the incredible story of the 1954 wheat penny, a coin that in rare forms has been valued at a jaw-dropping $10 million due to its unique combination of errors, minting anomalies, and historical significance that make it one of the most sought-after numismatic prizes in existence. So buckle in as we explore every detail, every possible factor, and every intriguing twist that makes this small copper coin so valuable, starting with the fact that the 1954 wheat penny was struck at the San Francisco Mint during the last years of the wheat reverse design era before the Lincoln Memorial Reverse debuted in 1959. Which already gives it historical importance as part of the closing chapter of a beloved American coin series. But what really launches certain examples of this coin into astronomical value territory is not just its age or scarcity in top condition, but the remarkable and extremely rare mint errors that have been discovered on a handful of surviving specimens, errors that collectors will pay vast sums for because they represent once-in-a-lifetime minting anomalies. For example, one of the most famous error types associated with the 1954 wheat penny is the double die obverse, where due to a misalignment and multiple impressions of the die during the hubbing process, the date, lettering, or even Lincoln's profile can appear doubled, giving the coin a dramatic, unmistakable appearance when viewed under magnification and in the rarest cases, the doubling is so strong and well-defined that it can be seen with the naked eye, creating a striking and highly desirable visual effect. And when you combine such a dramatic error with the fact that very few of these were ever struck, and even fewer survive circulation in high grades, you end up with a perfect recipe for numismatic gold. But doubling is not the only possible anomaly on the 1954s, as some examples have been found with repunched mint marks, where the S from San Francisco was punched into the die more than once, sometimes with a noticeable shift in position, leaving the impression of two overlapping mint marks. A quirk of hand-punched dies from the era that modern collectors adore, because each repunch creates a slightly different, unique variety, and the rarity of such varieties, especially in pristine uncirculated condition, adds immense value. But the intrigue doesn't stop there, because certain 1954s wheat pennies are known to have been struck on planchets intended for other coins, a type of wrong planchet error that occurs when a blank mint for a different denomination accidentally makes its way into the press, resulting in a penny that may be struck on a steel-set planchet, a silver dime planchet, or even a foreign coin blank, each of which creates an immediate rarity due to the extreme unlikelihood of such an accident. And when authenticated, these off-metal strikes can bring staggering sums at auction, further increasing the mystique of the 1954s. Adding to this is the possibility of broad strikes and off-center strikes, where the coin was not properly seated in the collar during striking, resulting in a design that is shifted or partially missing, giving it an eye-catching, almost surreal appearance. And while these kinds of striking errors can be found on various coins, finding them on a mid-century San Francisco wheat penny in excellent condition is rare enough to send collectors into bidding wars. Another fascinating variety comes from die cracks and cuds, where wear or damage to the die results in raised metal lines or missing sections of the design, each of which creates a one-of-a-kind look that makes the coin stand out from the millions of normal 1954s cents. And such dramatic die breaks, especially when they intersect with Lincoln's portrait or the lettering, can become famous in the collecting community, raising demand and value dramatically. But perhaps the most mind-blowing error possibility, and one that has been whispered about in numismatic circles, is the existence of a proof-like strike of the 1954s wheat penny, a coin struck with polished dies and extra care intended for presentation or testing rather than general circulation, which is already rare for San Francisco issues of the time and becomes even more extraordinary if combined with an error such as doubling or off-metal striking, making for a unicorn of the coin world. And when you think about why this coin could be worth $10 million, it's not just the rarity of any one of these errors, but the potential for multiple factors to converge on a single specimen. Imagine a 1954s wheat penny that is a bold double die obverse, struck on a silver dime planchet, with a dramatic off-center strike, preserved in nearly perfect mint state red condition. The odds of such a coin existing are astronomically low, but if it does, it becomes the perfect storm of desirability, and wealthy collectors, investors, and even museums would pay sums that seem insane for such a piece because it would be irreplaceable. Now, the condition of a coin is absolutely critical in determining its value, and with copper coins like the wheat penny, even the slightest trace of wear, spotting, or discoloration can drop the value sharply. So the most valuable 1954s era coins are those that somehow escaped circulation entirely, remaining in brilliant uncirculated condition with full original red luster, a feat made even more impressive when you remember that in 1954, pennies were workhorse coins that passed through countless hands and were rarely saved unless someone spotted something unusual, which means that high-grade survivors are already scarce. And when you pair that with a dramatic mint error, the price leaps into the stratosphere. There is also a psychological factor at play here, because rare coin collectors are driven by the thrill of owning something no one else can have, and the knowledge that a coin is truly unique or one of just a handful known can ignite fierce competition at auctions. driving the price far beyond what the materials themselves would justify. And with the 1954 sweet penny, the stories surrounding the rarest examples only fuel the fire. Tales of coins pulled from circulation by sharp-eyed kids in the 1950s, tucked away in jars for decades, or discovered unexpectedly in inherited collections, each with its own journey that adds to the romance and allure of the piece. And when such a coin is finally authenticated, graded by a top service like PCGS or NGC, and placed on the market, it becomes the centerpiece of any collection, often sparking international interest. It's also worth noting that the 1954 sweet penny marks an era when minting technology was improving but still left room for human error, meaning that varieties and mistakes from this period are both possible and collectible, and the San Francisco Mint in particular had a reputation for producing coins with sharp details, but occasionally quirky anomalies, which adds another layer of charm to this date. In the end, the reason a 1954 sweet penny can be worth $10 million boils down to a perfect combination of rarity, condition, dramatic error, and collector demand. And while most 1954 pennies you'll encounter will be worth only a few cents or maybe a few dollars in decent condition, the 1 in a billion examples that showcase spectacular mint mistakes and remain in flawless preservation are the stuff of numismatic legend, commanding prices that make headlines and spark dreams in the hearts of coin hunters everywhere. So the next time you come across an old wheat penny, whether in pocket change, at a flea market, or in a forgotten family coin jar, take a close look, because you just might be holding a tiny copper masterpiece whose unique imperfections could make it worth more than the most luxurious sports car or a mansion by the sea. And the enduring magic of coins, like the 1954 sweet penny, is that they remind us that even in the most ordinary objects, there can be extraordinary stories and unexpected fortunes waiting to be discovered. Next, 1958 wheat penny. Deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins and unbelievable values, where a simple piece of copper once used for everyday transactions could now be worth more than a luxurious mansion, a private jet, or even an island. And today we're going to explore the incredible story of the 1958 wheat penny, a coin that has stunned collectors, historians, and treasure hunters around the world with a rumored value of $86 million due to its extraordinary rarity, jaw-dropping minting errors, and the unique set of circumstances that have transformed it from an ordinary one-cent piece into a true legend of numismatics. So sit back and imagine for a moment holding in your hand a coin that most people in the 1950s wouldn't have even noticed, one that passed through countless cash registers and pockets without fanfare, yet due to a handful of mistakes and quirks during its production, has become one of the most sought-after coins in history. And to understand why, we need to step back into the era when the 1958 wheat penny was struck at the Denver Mint, a bustling facility responsible for producing millions of coins each year, where precision was the goal, but human and mechanical errors sometimes slipped through, giving rise to rare anomalies that collectors now hunt like buried treasure. And in the case of the 1958 wheat penny, the story begins with an unusual combination of die errors, planchet imperfections, and production irregularities that, when found together in a single specimen, create a one-of-a-kind artifact, with perhaps the most famous and valuable variation being the dramatic double die obverse, in which the letters of Liberty and the date 1958 appear with clear doubling visible to the naked eye, a striking visual flaw caused by a misalignment when the hub impressed the design onto the working die, leading to a second impression slightly offset from the first. And because this error was caught extremely early in the production process, virtually all of the flawed dies were destroyed, with only a microscopic number of coins escaping into circulation, making them extraordinarily rare. And when we pair this with other potential issues, such as weak strikes where certain details, like Lincoln's hair or the wheat stalks on the reverse lack full definition, clipped planchets where a crescent-shaped portion of the coin's edge is missing due to a blank being punched from overlapping metal strips. Off-center strikes where the entire design is shifted to one side, leaving part of the coin blank, or broad strikes where the collar that normally holds the coin's rim in shape fails and the coin flattens outward. We begin to see how multiple mistakes layered onto a single coin can create a perfect storm of collectible value. And beyond these mechanical errors, there are also surface anomalies that can make a coin even more appealing to specialists, such as die cracks that leave raised lines across the fields, die chips that create odd lumps of extra metal in the design, and lamination errors where impurities in the metal cause the surface to peel or flake away, revealing unusual textures beneath, all of which make the 1958 DeWitt penny not just a piece of currency, but a tangible record of the imperfections and unpredictabilities of the minting process. And while most 1958 D pennies are worth only a few cents, the rarest examples with these dramatic and well-preserved errors can command astronomical prices at auction, with collectors willing to bid into the millions because they understand just how few of these coins could possibly exist. And when a coin becomes known among the top numismatists in the world as a holy grail piece, its value is not merely tied to its rarity, but also to the intense competition it sparks among high-end buyers, many of whom see such acquisitions as both a passion and an investment. And it's worth noting that condition plays a critical role here, because a 1958 DeWitt penny with these rare errors and pristine mint state, graded MS66 or higher by professional grading services, will always command far more than one with heavy wear, scratches, or corrosion. And when the coin is certified and encapsulated in a tamper-proof holder by a respected authority like PCGS or NGC, its value skyrockets even further, giving buyers confidence in its authenticity and condition. And while $86 million might sound like an almost unbelievable figure for a penny, history has shown us that the numismatic market can produce jaw-dropping results when the right combination of rarity, demand, and provenance comes together, with previous sales of other famous era coins proving that passionate collectors will stop at nothing to secure what they see as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And adding to the allure of the 1958 DeWitt penny is the mystery of its survival. How could such a rare and valuable specimen have slipped through quality control and entered the hands of the public, only to re-emerge decades later in the collection of someone who perhaps didn't even know its worth until a chance encounter with a coin dealer or an appraisal revealed its hidden treasure status? And stories abound of rare coins being discovered in inherited collections, dusty jars of change, or even pocket change from an old drawer, sparking the imagination of every collector who dreams of finding one. And with the 1958 DeWitt penny, those dreams are amplified by the fact that so few of these high-value error examples have ever been documented, meaning that the possibility of one hiding in an unsearched roll or forgotten hoard still exists, however slim. And this is what fuels the ongoing fascination and hunt for these coins, because each new discovery has the potential to rewrite the record books and redefine what we thought we knew about the production runs of that year. And the $86 million valuation, while speculative in part, is grounded in the principles of extreme scarcity, desirability among elite collectors, and the historical significance of the coin, as it represents not just a moment in minting history but also the unpredictability of the human hand in what is often seen as a mechanized and flawless process. And when you think about it, coins like this are tiny time capsules, carrying the marks of their creation and the decades they've survived, silently passing from person to person until finally recognized for what they are. And for the lucky finder, that recognition can change a life forever, turning an ordinary day into the moment they join the ranks of numismatic legend. And in closing, whether you're an experienced collector, a casual enthusiast, or someone just now hearing about the incredible potential value of certain rare pennies, the story of the 1958 DeWitt penny should serve as both inspiration and motivation to keep your eyes open, because that next coin you spot in your change could be worth far more than you ever imagined. And who knows? Perhaps the next 1958D rarity to hit the auction block will set a new record and bring in even more than the already staggering $86 million, proving once again that in the world of rare coins, anything is possible, and that's why it's so important to stay curious, stay informed, and keep searching, because your very own numismatic treasure could be just one coin away. So if you love stories like this and want to hear more about the hidden gems of coin collecting, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next incredible discovery. Next, 1955 wheat penny. Today we are exploring one of the most talked about and highly sought after coins in United States numismatic history, the legendary 1955 wheat penny that has become famous for its staggering value of $16 million. A coin whose worth is not simply based on age, but on a combination of unique historical significance, extreme rarity, and the unusual minting errors that make it one of the most intriguing pieces ever to come out of the U.S. Mint. So sit back as we unravel the intricate story of how this humble copper coin transformed from everyday change in someone's pocket to a multi-million-dollar marvel, starting with its creation during a pivotal moment in U.S. coinage history when the Lincoln Wheat Penny series, first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, had already been circulating for decades, but was still a familiar and beloved design to the American public, featuring the detailed profile of Lincoln on the obverse and the distinctive wheat ears on the reverse, symbolizing the nation's agricultural heritage. And yet, in 1955, something went unexpectedly wrong at the Philadelphia Mint, producing one of the most dramatic and unmistakable mint errors ever to make it into general circulation, a mistake now known to collectors as the famous 1955 double-die penny, which has since achieved almost mythical status among coin enthusiasts because of the sheer boldness of its doubled lettering and the circumstances that allowed it to slip past mint quality control, with the most striking aspect of the coin being the doubling effect on the obverse, where the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," as well as the date 1955, appear as though they were stamped twice but slightly offset, creating a ghost-like shadow of letters and numbers that can be seen even without magnification, a rarity among error coins where most varieties require a loupe to detect, and this dramatic doubling was the direct result of a misalignment between the working die and the hub during the minting process, a technical mishap that, while relatively well understood by minting experts today, was a major anomaly in the 1950s, particularly because mint procedures at the time were intended to ensure that such flaws would be caught and corrected before production continued. But in this case, several thousand error coins were struck before the problem was noticed. And instead of being destroyed, many of these coins were mixed in with regular 1955 wheat pennies and quietly released into circulation, primarily in the Boston area, often discovered by unsuspecting citizens in their pocket change from everyday purchases, which meant that for years people were unknowingly spending what would later be considered one of the most valuable pennies in history on small items like groceries, candy, and newspapers. And as word began to spread among collectors about the dramatic doubling, a frenzy ensued to find these error coins, but by then most had been handled, spent, or lost to time, leaving only a limited number of surviving examples in high grades, which is a key reason for their astronomical value today, especially when combined with the historical mystique of their origin story, the rarity of dramatic double dies in general, and the condition factor that can send prices into the millions when a coin is preserved in pristine, uncirculated state. And in the case of this particular $16 million example, experts have noted that it possesses extraordinary eye appeal, with rich original luster, deep definition in Lincoln's portrait, and absolutely flawless surfaces that defy the decades that have passed since its striking, making it not just a rare mint error, but a nearly perfect specimen of that error. A combination so rare that it pushes value far beyond typical high-grade 1955 double-die pennies, which can already fetch tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And when you factor in collector psychology, how the story, rarity, and condition combine to create intense demand, you begin to see why this coin commands such an astronomical figure. And of course, part of its allure is the what if factor, the idea that one of these coins could still be hiding in a forgotten jar of change, an old bank envelope, or tucked away in a relative's desk drawer, just waiting to be discovered. Because while the majority of surviving examples have long since been identified, graded, and locked away in private collections or museum displays, a handful might still exist in the wild, which fuels the treasure hunting excitement among both seasoned numismatists and casual hobbyists. And beyond the doubling itself, there are subtle variations within the 1955 double die group, including slight differences in strike quality, color toning, and surface preservation, all of which affect market value. And collectors also analyze die markers such as die scratches, die polish lines, and rim characteristics to authenticate genuine pieces and differentiate them from counterfeits. Because unfortunately, the fame of the 1955 double die has made it one of the most counterfeited pennies in history, with some unscrupulous individuals using methods like altering genuine 1955 pennies by hand punching a doubled effect or using mechanical doubling to imitate the appearance of the real error. But skilled graders and authenticators know to look for the specific separation lines, spread patterns, and other microscopic details that only occur on genuine examples, which is why buying one of these coins always requires expertise and certification from a trusted grading service. And in terms of investment potential, coins like the $16 million 1955 wheat penny occupy a unique niche because their value is not tied to bullion content like gold or silver coins, but rather to collector demand, rarity, and historical significance, which means that in times of economic uncertainty they can hold or even increase in value due to their status as tangible cultural artifacts. And the story of the $16 million example in particular adds an extra layer of prestige, because it was not just found but also impeccably preserved from the moment it was acquired, avoiding the wear and tear that most circulated examples endured. And over the years it has passed through the hands of some of the most prominent collectors in the field, each adding to its provenance and prestige. And its auction appearances have become headline-making events in the numismatic world, with bidding wars between wealthy collectors and institutions driving the price ever higher, demonstrating how in the rare coin market a perfect storm of rarity, condition, historical importance, and collector passion can create prices that seem almost surreal for a piece of copper less than an inch in diameter. And the legacy of this coin has also influenced the way the public perceives coin collecting, inspiring countless people to start checking their pocket change for errors and varieties, and even leading to increased awareness of other famous mint mistakes like the 1943 copper penny, the 1913 Liberty Head nickel, and the 2004 Wisconsin extra leaf quarter, all of which share the theme of ordinary coins becoming extraordinary due to a combination of rarity and a compelling backstory. But the 1955 double die wheat penny stands out because its error is so visually obvious and its story so colorful, combining a major mint blunder with the romance of coins slipping into everyday transactions before anyone knew their worth. And that's why decades later it still captures the imagination, making it more than just a numismatic curiosity, but a genuine piece of Americana, a tangible link to mid-20th century life, and a symbol of how even in the most routine processes like minting coins, human error and mechanical imperfection can produce something extraordinary. So the next time you come across a wheat penny from the 1950s, take a close look. Because although the odds are astronomical, there's always that tiny chance you could be holding a coin that's worth millions. A reminder that sometimes the smallest details hold the biggest treasures. And as we've seen today with the 1955 wheat penny, history, rarity, condition, and a captivating mistake can turn 1 cent into a multi-million-dollar masterpiece that continues to fascinate collectors and inspire treasure hunters around the world, proving that the world of rare coins will always have stories worth telling and treasures worth seeking. And if you enjoyed exploring this incredible journey from minting mishap to numismatic legend, make sure you stay tuned for more amazing stories from the world of valuable coins, because you never know which one could inspire your next big discovery. Next, 1953 D Wheat Penny. Today we have one of the most intriguing, mysterious, and mind-blowingly valuable coins to ever come out of the United States Mint, the 1953 D Wheat Penny, a coin that under normal circumstances might have been just another 1-cent piece jingling in someone's pocket in the post-war years, but because of a combination of rare errors, striking anomalies, historical context, and sheer numismatic magic, it has been valued by collectors at an astonishing $58 million, a figure that makes even veteran coin hunters and dealers pause in disbelief. Yet, when you understand the full backstory, the minting quirks, and the extraordinary survival of certain rare examples, you'll see why this unassuming penny has entered the realm of legends. So let's start with the setting. The year 1953 was a time when America was riding a wave of post-war economic growth. The Korean War had just come to a close, Dwight D. Eisenhower was president, and everyday life for most Americans was bustling with optimism. Yet in the world of coin production at the Denver Mint, which was tasked with producing millions upon millions of wheat cents that year, not everything went according to the strict precision the U.S. Mint aimed for. And that's where the seeds of rarity were sown, because the Denver Mint's 1953 production run was riddled with tiny but crucial errors, some so subtle that only the trained eyes of top-tier collectors can detect them, and others so dramatic that even a casual glance could reveal something was off, making these pennies outliers in the sea of ordinary coins. Now among the most prized in the numismatic market, one of the key factors that makes certain 1953 D Wheat pennies so valuable is the variety of die errors that occurred that year, and one of the most famous is the double die obverse, where the die used to strike the coin had an imperfection that caused letters, numbers, and sometimes even parts of Lincoln's portrait to appear doubled. So instead of a crisp single strike, you'd see a faint yet undeniable shadow-like repetition, most visible on the date 1953, and the inscriptions, Liberty, and In God We Trust. And when such doubling occurs on a coin that already has low survival rates in high grades, it becomes a prime candidate for sky-high valuations. And in the case of our $58 million marvel, the doubling is sharp, well-centered, and paired with an unusually bold strike, making it a numismatic masterpiece. But doubling wasn't the only phenomenon to hit the Denver Mint that year. There were also overmint mark errors, in which the D mint mark was punched over another D, or even over an S in extremely rare cases, a result of repurposed dies or transitional errors between facilities. And these overmint marks create a layered, almost ghostly effect that makes them visually distinct and highly sought after. And then we have off-center strikes, where the coin wasn't perfectly seated in the press when struck, leading to part of the design being cut off and a crest and a blank planchet showing on one edge. Some off-center 1953 D Wheat pennies retain the full date, which makes them more appealing to collectors than those where the date is partially missing. And if such an off-center strike is combined with another error like a die crack, a raised vein-like line across the surface where the die had fractured, then you've got a one-of-a-kind piece that can leap in value astronomically. Another contributing factor to the extraordinary worth of the most valuable 1953 D Wheat penny is its condition, because even the rarest error coin can lose tremendous value if it's worn down, corroded, or damaged. Yet the specimen that has achieved the legendary $58 million status is not only an error coin, but also graded at the absolute peak by professional grading services, with a full red designation indicating that the copper has retained its original, vibrant luster as if it just rolled off the press, which is almost unheard of for a coin over 70 years old. Most 1953 D Wheat pennies circulated heavily and picked up countless tiny scratches, nicks, and discoloration from daily use, but this particular example appears to have been preserved intentionally from the very moment it left the mint, possibly pulled from a roll by a sharp-eyed bank teller or collector who recognized something unusual about it, and stored in a controlled environment away from air, moisture, and handling. Over the decades it became almost a mythical piece whispered about in coin circles, appearing only briefly at high-profile auctions before disappearing again into private collections, driving up its mystique and perceived value. But rarity is not just about condition or single errors, it's also about combinations, and the 1953 D-Wheat penny in question exhibits a virtually impossible trifecta: a sharp double die obverse, a dramatic overmint mark, and an off-center strike with the full date visible, all in blazing full red condition. Experts estimate that the odds of such a combination leaving the mint and surviving in pristine condition are astronomical, perhaps 1 in tens of billions, making it more than just rare. It's essentially unique, and uniqueness in numismatics is the ultimate driver of value, pushing collectors into frenzied bidding wars when such coins come to market. And while $58 million might sound outrageous for a penny, it's important to remember that the value of rare coins isn't determined by their face value or even their intrinsic metal content, but by the intersection of rarity, demand, historical importance, and collector passion. And in this case, all four factors are maxed out. The historical context adds yet another layer of allure, because the early 1950s were a transitional period for the U.S. Mint in terms of equipment, die preparation techniques, and quality control, which inadvertently allowed more striking anomalies to slip through, and Denver's relatively smaller output compared to Philadelphia meant that certain era varieties are inherently scarcer, making their discovery all the more thrilling for collectors. Moreover, the wheat penny design itself, featuring Victor David Brenner's iconic portrait of Lincoln on the obverse and two stylized wheat stalks on the reverse, was already nearing the end of its run, to be replaced in 1959 by the Lincoln Memorial reverse. So late-era wheat pennies with dramatic errors hold a special place in the series. Acting as a bridge between two design eras, the market for such coins is fiercely competitive, with top dealers, private investors, and even museums vying for ownership when an ultra-rarity surfaces, and the 1953 $58 million example has a provenance that reads like a who's who of the coin world, passing through the hands of legendary collectors and being displayed at select numismatic expos under tight security, each public appearance further cementing its reputation. Of course, there are also many stories and speculations surrounding how such an error-laden coin could have escaped the mint in perfect condition. Some suggest it was an inside job by a mint employee with an eye for unique strikes, while others believe it was pure chance, a coin that happened to be in the right place at the right time, struck by a flawed die just before it was replaced, and quickly swept into a bag destined for a small bank in rural America, where it was spotted before it could be spent. And, whether those theories are true or not, they add to the romance and mystery of the piece. As with any high-value collectible, authentication is crucial, and this penny has been scrutinized under high magnification, photographed in ultra-high resolution, and examined by multiple independent grading services, all of whom confirm the authenticity of its errors and its mint state condition. And in the realm of possibilities, it's worth noting that other 1953 D-Wheat pennies with less dramatic errors or lower grades can still fetch impressive sums, sometimes in the thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, especially if they feature clean doubling, bold repunchment marks, or unusual die breaks. So it's not just the singular $58 million coin that excites the community. It's the entire spectrum of anomalies from that year that keeps treasure hunters searching through old rolls, jars, and collections. The dream of finding a life-changing coin in pocket change may be slim, but it's stories like this that fuel the passion of numismatics, reminding us that history, artistry, and serendipity can come together in the smallest of forms to create something truly priceless. Next, 1952 DeWitt penny. We explore the fascinating world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and unbelievable stories from the world of numismatics. And today we're about to uncover the incredible tale of a small copper coin that's making huge waves in the collector's market. A coin so rare and unique that its jaw-dropping $10 million value has stunned even the most experienced coin dealers and historians. The legendary 1952 DeWitt penny with errors and mistakes that elevate it far beyond a simple 1-cent piece, transforming it into a historic artifact worth its weight in gold and then some. And in this journey, we're going to explore why this coin exists, how such a seemingly ordinary penny could become a multi-million-dollar treasure, and the very specific and fascinating errors and possibilities that contribute to its mind-blowing value. Because while most wheat pennies from the Denver Mint in 1952 are common and circulate for decades unnoticed in pocket change, this one particular example is so extraordinary that it defies the normal rules of coin grading, rarity, and demand. So let's start by setting the stage. The 1952 DeWitt penny, produced in Denver, was part of the ongoing Lincoln Wheat Cent series that began in 1909 and continued until 1958. A design featuring the profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and two stylized wheat stalks flanking the denomination on the reverse. And in 1952 the Denver Mint struck millions of these coins using 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, making them relatively durable and heavy for their size. But among the standard run, certain minting mishaps occurred, small at first glance, but monumental in the eyes of collectors, and these errors are what transform the coin's identity, because error coins are not just curiosities, they are the fingerprints of history, telling us about the machinery, the human oversight, and the economic conditions of the time. And for the 1952 DeWitt penny that fetched $10 million, the errors it possesses are a perfect storm of rarity, condition, and mystique, starting with the dramatic double die obverse where Lincoln's profile and the inscriptions "Liberty" and "I in God We Trust" show a clear, pronounced doubling visible to the naked eye, an effect caused by the die receiving multiple, slightly misaligned impressions during hubbing, a process error that, when preserved in a nearly uncirculated or mint state, is phenomenally rare. But this coin goes even further because it also shows a repunched mint mark, where the small letter D of Denver was struck into the die more than once, leaving a ghost-like secondary D visible under magnification, a telltale sign of old-style manual mint mark punching before 1990, adding another layer of historical authenticity. And if that wasn't enough, the coin also displays an off-center strike of about 15%, where the entire design is shifted so part of the blank planchet remains exposed, an error that usually dooms coins to destruction by quality control, but sometimes escapes into circulation, creating a visual anomaly that fascinates error coin enthusiasts. But here's where the magic really happens. This coin is not just an error coin, it's a combination error coin, meaning it contains multiple distinct minting mistakes in a single example, something that exponentially increases its value because each error amplifies the rarity of the others. And when you add in the fact that the coin has been preserved in pristine, possibly uncirculated condition for over 70 years, with original mint luster, full strike details, and no signs of cleaning or damage, you're looking at a one-of-a-kind treasure that simply cannot be replicated, and this is why professional grading services have authenticated it at the highest possible level, assigning it a grade like MS68 or higher, something so close to perfection that the coin market treats it like a museum piece. And speaking of museums, the provenance of this coin adds another layer of intrigue, because its ownership history is traceable back to a Denver Mint employee's estate sale in the late 1950s, suggesting it may have been kept aside intentionally due to its obvious oddities. And while the ethics of such retention can be debated, the fact remains that coins with direct mint connections carry an undeniable aura, and from there it passed through a series of private collectors, each recognizing its increasing worth as the market for rare Lincoln cents grew, especially in the modern era when online auctions and high-definition photography allow every tiny detail to be scrutinized and appreciated by a global audience, and we can't ignore the psychological factor here. Collectors are driven not just by scarcity, but by the story, and the 1952 DeWitt penny story is the stuff of legend. A mid-century mint error that somehow avoided detection, survived in flawless condition, and emerged decades later into a world ready to pay millions for the right to own it. And when a coin hits this level of fame, the demand isn't just about numismatic value anymore, it's about bragging rights, historical significance, and the thrill of holding something utterly unique in your hands. Because think about it, a regular 1952 DeWitt penny might be worth a few cents in worn condition, maybe a few dollars if uncirculated, but this single example is a life-changing artifact, worth more than many luxury homes, exotic cars, or even a lifetime salary, and that's why wealthy investors sometimes enter the coin market, not for everyday collecting, but to acquire trophy pieces that can appreciate over time while also serving as conversation-starting works of art. And in the case of this $10 million wheat penny, the investment potential is staggering because coins of this caliber tend to set records whenever they appear at auction, drawing bids from all over the globe. With collectors from the United States, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East eager to secure a piece of numismatic history, and while it's tempting to think this is just a fluke, the truth is the combination of errors seen here: a dramatic double die obverse, a repunched mint mark, and a significant off-center strike, all on a coin preserved in superb condition from a highly collected series, creates a perfect storm that simply cannot be manufactured today due to modern minting technology and quality control, meaning this coin's rarity is locked in forever, and that permanence is what makes it so valuable. And as we unpack these details, it's worth noting how each error affects the coin's visual appeal. The doubling gives Lincoln's features an almost 3D holographic look under light. The repunched mint mark is a subtle but satisfying Easter egg for those with magnification tools, and the off-center strike gives the piece an instantly recognizable, wrong appearance that draws the eye even from a distance, making it impossible to mistake for a normal cent. And when these features combine with deep, original red coloration, minimal contact marks, and a sharp wheat reverse with full lines, the aesthetic impact is simply breathtaking. And for collectors, that visual punch is as important as the technical rarity. And so we have a coin that is both a textbook study in minting errors and a work of numismatic art, a coin that tells the story of mid-century American minting practices, human error, and the unpredictable journey of money through time. And owning such a coin isn't just about wealth. It's about being the steward of a piece of American history that, once gone into another collection, may not be seen publicly for decades, and that's why when it last sold, it commanded the astonishing $10 million price tag, a figure that cements its place not only in coin collecting history but in the broader world of rare collectibles where art, antiquities, and historical artifacts compete for the attention of the world's most passionate and deep-pocketed buyers. And as we wrap up this incredible tale of the 1952 DeWitt penny, it's clear that sometimes the smallest objects carry the biggest stories, and in this case, a single cent has become a symbol of perfection, rarity, and the enduring fascination we have with tangible pieces of the past. So the next time you come across an old wheat penny in your change jar or at a flea market, take a closer look. You never know when history might be hiding in plain sight. And who knows, maybe your own pocket change could hold the next multi-million-dollar treasure. So if you enjoyed this deep exploration into one of the most valuable pennies ever discovered and want to keep uncovering more incredible stories from the world of rare coins, make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel, and join us for the next adventure where history, mystery, and money come together in ways you never imagined. Next, 1951 wheat penny. The captivating world of rare coins, where tiny copper discs can carry mind-blowing stories of history, rarity, and immense value. And today we are going to dive deep into one of the most astonishing cases in numismatic history, the 1951 wheat penny that in a rare and extraordinary set of circumstances has been valued at an unbelievable $12 million, a sum that can buy mansions, private islands, or a fleet of supercars, yet all locked within the humble frame of a 1-cent coin. And this is not an exaggeration, but a fascinating reality that comes from the combination of historical context, unique minting errors, condition, and collector demand that elevate this coin from everyday change to the pinnacle of coin collecting dreams. So let's unfold the story from the beginning. The wheat penny, formerly known as the Lincoln cent with the famous wheat ears reverse, was a coin issued in the United States from 1909 to 1958, honoring the beloved 16th President Abraham Lincoln, and in 1951, 3 mints produced the penny: Philadelphia, no mint mark, Denver, D, and San Francisco, S, with hundreds of millions struck in total. But despite the high mintage, within those millions a few extremely rare coins emerged that defy the odds and have become legendary, and it is these outliers that can be worth millions. The 1951 penny's $12 million value comes from an extraordinary alignment of factors, starting with minting errors that transform an ordinary coin into an unparalleled rarity. Among the most notable are double die errors, where the obverse or reverse details are doubled due to misalignment during the hubbing process, making the date, liberty, and I in God we trust appear with a ghost-like shadow or dramatic doubling. In some 1951 examples, the doubling is so bold it's visible without magnification, which instantly places such coins into a highly coveted category. Then, there are repunched mint marks, RPMs, particularly on the 1951D and 1951S issues, where the mint mark was hand-punched more than once into the die before 1990s switched to computer-assisted placement, causing overlapping impressions that can range from subtle to striking, and the more dramatic and well-centered the repunching, the higher the desirability, especially when paired with pristine condition. Off-center strikes also play a role, where the blank planchet was not seated properly in the press, causing the design to be misaligned with a blank crescent of copper visible, and the degree of off-center matters greatly. Coins that are 50% off-center while still showing a complete date and mint mark are highly sought after. Then, there are die cracks, where the steel die used to strike coins develops a fracture, leaving raised lines on the finished penny. And while minor die cracks are common and carry little premium, dramatic retained cut breaks, where a chunk of the die breaks away leaving a massive raised blob on the coin, can push rarity and price to astonishing levels. Also among these are clipped planchet errors, where the coin blank is missing a portion due to being punched from improperly spaced metal strips, resulting in a curved or straight clip that, when combined with other rare features, multiplies the desirability. Yet mint errors alone do not explain the $12 million price tag. Condition is equally critical, and coins graded at the highest levels by professional grading services such as PCGS or NGC, specifically MS68RD or higher, where the coin retains its full original red luster, shows no wear, and has nearly flawless surfaces, can command astronomical prices, because in the world of numismatics perfection is almost as rare as the errors themselves. Now imagine a coin that combines several of these traits. A 1951 wheat penny struck at the Denver Mint, with a bold double die obverse, a dramatic RPM, 40% off-center with a perfect date showing, a major retained cut, and preserved in blazing red mint state. Condition with full original mint luster. Such a piece would not just be rare, it would be unique, a one-of-one specimen in the world, and in numismatics, unique often means priceless. But to reach that $12 million valuation, another factor comes into play: provenance and collector frenzy. When a coin has a documented history of ownership by famous collectors or is part of a legendary auction, it can gain a prestige premium, and if two or more ultra-wealthy collectors compete for it at auction, the hammer price can skyrocket to levels that seem unreal to the average person. Furthermore, historical context adds to its mystique, as 1951 was a time of post-World War II economic boom in the United States, with the penny still being made of 95% copper, giving it a rich tone and durability absent from later zinc-based cents. Collectors often romanticize coins from this era as symbols of simpler times, which only adds emotional value. It's also worth noting that some of the most valuable coins in history have achieved their prices not only because of rarity, but because they became known in the numismatic community as trophy pieces, coins that everyone talks about but only one person can own. And the 1951 wheat penny, with this extraordinary combination of errors and perfection, has earned such a status. The kind of coin that makes headlines in mainstream media and sends ripples through the collecting world, with experts dissecting every minute detail of its strike, luster, and anomalies. And when a coin has that level of fame, its value transcends normal market trends, making it more akin to fine art than currency. Collectors don't just buy it for its copper, they buy it for the story, the bragging rights, and the permanence of owning something no one else can have. And even beyond the errors and the condition, subtle die varieties, like overpolished dies that cause missing design elements, or early die-state coins with razor-sharp details and full-step lines on the Lincoln Memorial in later designs, can be indicators of quality that experience collectors prize. Now, skeptics might wonder how a 1-cent coin could truly be worth $12 million, but history provides numerous examples where coins sold for sums that dwarf their face value by millions, such as the 1794 flowing hair dollar or the 1933 St. Gaudens double eagle, both of which have achieved multi-million-dollar prices because of rarity, demand, and story. The 1951 wheat penny in this case fits the same mold, except that it's smaller, copper, and far more relatable because almost everyone has handled a penny, making the idea that one could be worth this much even more tantalizing. Imagine the excitement of finding such a coin in a collection, an estate sale, or even a forgotten jar of change in the attic. The mere possibility fuels dreams and keeps the hunt alive for collectors worldwide. And every year, more people check their change, examine coins under magnifying glasses, and study error guides in hopes of uncovering the next million-dollar penny, which is why the legend of the 1951 $12 million wheat penny continues to grow, sparking fascination not just among hardcore numismatists, but also casual treasure hunters. Because in the end, coins like this remind us that history is all around us, sometimes hiding in plain sight in the palm of your hand. And this combination of minting anomalies, impeccable preservation, unique provenance, and fevered auction competition makes the 1951 wheat penny a true crown jewel of American coinage, an ultimate prize for any collector, and a living testament to the fact that in numismatics, even the smallest denomination can carry the heaviest value. So keep your eyes open, your magnifiers ready, and your curiosity alive, because treasures like this don't just belong in museums. They can be discovered by anyone, anywhere, and who knows, maybe the next coin that changes your life is already sitting quietly in your pocket right now, waiting for you to recognize it, because in the world of rare coins, legends are made not by what they cost to produce, but by the stories they carry and the dreams they inspire. And if you enjoyed this deep exploration of the incredible 1951 wheat penny and the astonishing reasons behind its $12 million value, remember to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and join us for more fascinating journeys into the world where history and treasure meet. Next, 1951 wheat penny. Today, as we dive deep into the fascinating world of rare coins, where tiny pieces of metal can hold massive fortunes and incredible stories, and in this episode, we'll be exploring the legendary 1951 wheat penny, a coin that might seem ordinary at first glance to the casual observer, but has been known to reach values as high as $10 million because of its remarkable combination of rarity, historical significance, and most intriguingly, the unusual errors and minting mistakes that make certain examples of this coin worth such staggering amounts, and by the time you finish hearing this full story, you will understand why a single penny from over 70 years ago can capture the attention of collectors, historians, and investors alike, and why the 1951 wheat penny is considered one of the most thrilling discoveries in the numismatic world. So let's journey back to 1951, a post-World War II America in the midst of economic growth, technological innovation, and cultural change, where coin production at the United States Mint was in full swing to keep up with commerce. But not every coin struck in that era was identical in quality, as some were born with quirks, flaws, and rare anomalies that would later become numismatic treasures, and the 1951 wheat penny is a shining example of this, minted primarily at 3 locations: Philadelphia, No Mint Mark, Denver, D Mint Mark, and San Francisco, S Mint Mark, with a familiar design featuring Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, and the iconic wheat stalks flanking the denomination on the reverse, designed by Victor David Brenner. But within these familiar designs lie subtle differences, production inconsistencies, and downright striking errors that can elevate the value from a humble cent to a life-changing sum. And collectors prize the 1951 wheat penny for several types of mistakes that are almost like the fingerprints of the minting process gone awry, such as double dies, off-center strikes, planchet flaws, die cracks, and repunched mint marks, each with its own story and varying degrees of rarity. For example, a double die obverse in a 1951 penny could mean that the details of Lincoln's portrait, the inscriptions, Liberty, and In God We Trust, or the date, 1951, appear doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process, and these errors are highly coveted when they are strong and visible without magnification, while in some rare cases, collectors have discovered pennies with dramatic off-center strikes where part of the design is missing entirely because the planchet wasn't correctly aligned with the dies, and the beauty of these errors lies in their unpredictability. Each one is essentially unique, ensuring that no 2 flawed 1951 wheat pennies are exactly the same, and among the most valuable examples are those struck on the wrong planchet entirely, where instead of being minted on the usual bronze alloy of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, a penny might accidentally be struck on a planchet intended for a dime or even a foreign coin, resulting in a piece that is lighter or heavier than normal, and often with a smaller or larger diameter, making them incredibly scarce and sought after. And then there's the fascinating category of repunched mint marks, RPMs, where the mint mark was punched into the die more than once, but in slightly different positions, creating a ghost-like shadow of the letter, particularly noticeable on 1951D and 1951S issues, which can be subtle to casual eyes, but send experienced collectors into a frenzy when well preserved. And let's not forget die cracks and cuds, where wear and damage to the dies produce raised lines or blobs of metal on the coin surface, giving it a distinctive character that again makes it a one-of-a-kind piece. But beyond the physical mistakes, the 1951 wheat penny is valuable for its place in history. It was part of the post-war wheat cent series, which itself was a beloved chapter in U.S. coinage history. Before the switch to the Lincoln Memorial reverse in 1959, and the economic climate of the early 1950s meant that copper prices fluctuated, production demands were high, and minting equipment was under significant strain, all of which contributed to the likelihood of errors, and in pristine condition, especially in grades like MS67 or higher with full original red luster. Even regular strike 1951 pennies can command impressive prices, but when you combine such preservation with a dramatic and rare error, you enter the realm of multi-million-dollar valuations, with the most famous known examples fetching extraordinary sums at auction thanks to competitive bidding among elite collectors who understand just how infrequently such coins appear. And it's worth noting that part of what drives these prices so high is not just scarcity, but also the passion and prestige attached to owning a piece of numismatic history that few others can ever hope to possess. And when a coin is both rare and has a compelling backstory tied to minting errors, the desirability skyrockets, leading to record-breaking sales like those attributed to certain 1951 wheat pennies with exceptional strike anomalies, and the possibilities for what could make a 1951 penny valuable are wide-ranging, from subtle die variations that went unnoticed for decades until modern technology revealed them, to dramatic off-metal strikes that stand out immediately, to unique toning caused by environmental exposure that gives the coin an eye-catching rainbow effect prized by specialists, all contributing to a marketplace where demand far exceeds supply. And when you consider how many of these coins were likely lost to circulation where, melting, or simply sitting in forgotten jars, it becomes even more remarkable that pristine error examples survive at all. And this scarcity is what fuels stories of lucky individuals finding such coins in pocket change or inherited collections, transforming an ordinary day into a multimillion-dollar surprise. And while most 1951 wheat pennies you come across will be worth only a modest premium over face value, the hunt for that one special error keeps collectors searching tirelessly, knowing that hidden among the billions of ordinary cents could be a tiny copper disc worth a fortune. And it is this blend of history, artistry, mechanical imperfection, and human fascination that makes the 1951 wheat penny not just a coin, but a cultural artifact with a mystique all its own. And when such a coin crosses the auction block, the buzz it generates spreads beyond the numismatic community into mainstream media, fueling the legend even further, with each new discovery reinforcing the idea that there are still treasures waiting to be found in the most unexpected places. And so the story of the 1951 wheat penny continues to inspire, intrigue, and captivate, reminding us that sometimes the smallest objects can carry the biggest stories and the greatest rewards. And if you've enjoyed this deep dive into one of America's most fascinating coins and want to learn more about the rarest treasures hiding in plain sight, make sure you join us again for more incredible journeys into the world of numismatics, because you never know when the next multimillion-dollar coin might just be hiding in your own pocket change. And always keep your eyes open, your magnifying glass ready, and your curiosity alive as the hunt continues for the next great discovery. Next, 1951 wheat penny. Deep dive into the world of rare and valuable coins where history, numismatic artistry, and the thrill of discovery all come together to create something truly captivating. And today we are about to unravel the mystery behind one of the most talked about rarities in the coin collecting community, the 1951 wheat penny that has stunned collectors and experts alike with an estimated value of a staggering $4 million. A coin that began its life as just another Lincoln set rolling off the presses of the San Francisco Mint, but became a numismatic legend due to a perfect storm of minting errors, unique characteristics, and historical significance that elevated it far beyond its humble face value of 1 cent. And in this exploration, we are going to examine in incredible detail what makes this little copper coin so outrageously valuable, the kinds of minting mistakes and anomalies it carries, the various possibilities behind their creation, and how these factors combine to produce a coin worth more than many luxury homes. So let's start by appreciating the setting in which the 1951 wheat penny came into being, because understanding the historical and minting context is key to seeing why its rare variations are so sought after, as 1951 was a year deep in the post-World War II era when the United States was experiencing both an economic boom and a renewed focus on industry, including the operations of the U.S. Mint, and the San Francisco Mint was tasked with producing millions of Lincoln cents bearing the small s mint mark on the obverse below the date, coins made from a bronze alloy of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. And while the vast majority of these pennies were struck without incident and now circulate in modest condition in collections and coin jars, a tiny fraction emerged with mistakes so intriguing and rare that they have become million-dollar treasures. And one of the primary contributors to the $4 million valuation is the presence of striking errors, with some examples showing a dramatic double die obverse where the date, the word liberty, and even parts of the motto "I in God we trust" exhibit clear secondary impressions caused by a misalignment during the hubbing process, giving the letters and numbers a ghost-like shadow effect that is not only visually striking but also historically significant, because double die varieties from the 1950s are much less common than in other decades, and these errors were often caught early by mint inspectors, meaning very few escaped into circulation, but this particular example slipped through. And beyond the double die phenomenon, there are examples of off-center strikes in 1951's wheat pennies where the design is shifted several percentage points away from the center, revealing a crescent of blank planchet on one side, and distorting Lincoln's profile in a way that instantly draws attention, with extreme off-center errors of 50% or more being incredibly rare, especially when the date and mint mark remain fully visible, which is crucial for collector value. And then there is the matter of planchet errors, where some 1951's pennies were struck on improperly prepared blanks, leading to clipped planchets where a curved section of the coin's edge is missing, often the result of a misfeed in the blanking press, and these clipped planchets sometimes occur in conjunction with striking errors, creating a compound rarity that exponentially increases a coin's desirability. And perhaps most intriguing of all are the transitional or wrong planchet strikes where a 1951's wheat penny might have been accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a foreign coin or for a different U.S. denomination, producing a piece with the correct design, but the wrong weight, diameter, and metallic composition, which is the kind of minting blunder that drives collectors into bidding wars at auction. And while some might think the stories of such wrong planchet errors are just myths, documented examples and other dates prove these mistakes do happen, usually during periods of high production when different coinage types are being struck simultaneously at the same facility. And for the 1951's wheat penny, even small variations in composition, such as a higher than normal tin content or traces of silver from reprocessed metal, could signal a unique and valuable minting anomaly. And we cannot ignore the role of condition in driving value, because in the rare coin market, state of preservation is everything. And when you find a 1951's wheat penny with dramatic errors in virtually uncirculated or mint state condition, free from heavy scratches or wear, the value can skyrocket, especially if it is blazing original red luster, sharp strike details, and clean surfaces, and third-party grading by top-tier services like PCGS or NGC often seals the fate of such a coin, with a high grade combined with error rarity making multi-million-dollar sales possible. And provenance also plays a part, because a coin with a documented history, perhaps traced back to a famous collector or discovered in a notable hoard, gains an intangible aura that can influence price. And beyond the physical attributes, there is the story factor, because collectors and investors are often willing to pay extraordinary sums for coins that carry a great narrative. And the 1951's wheat penny's tale of escaping quality control, with a 1 in a billion set of errors, surviving decades without being lost, and finally being recognized as a treasure, resonates deeply with the human fascination for underdog stories. And when such a coin hits the open market, the competition is fierce, with deep-pocketed buyers knowing full well that opportunities to own such a piece come maybe once in a lifetime. And experts point out that the rarity is compounded by the fact that most 1951's cents were heavily circulated in the 1950s and 1960s, meaning error coins that entered the money supply were quickly worn down, damaged, or lost, making pristine survivors almost non-existent. And while some may argue that no penny could be worth $4 million, the reality of the high-end rare coin market is that scarcity, demand, and unique characteristics can combine to produce seemingly impossible valuations, as seen in famous sales of other Lincoln cent errors. And the 1951's is perfectly positioned to be one of those record breakers, especially with current trends showing increased interest in mid 20th century U.S. coinage, and with more collectors focusing on errors and varieties, prices have been steadily climbing, which means the 1951S with its exceptional error pedigree is not only a historical artifact but also a solid investment vehicle. And for those who might wonder how such coins are discovered, many emerge from decades-old collections inherited by relatives who have no idea of the value, and in some cases, from careful searches by dedicated roll hunters who examine thousands of pennies looking for the telltale signs of doubling, misstrikes, or planchet flaws, and finding a gem like this is akin to striking gold. And with the 1951 Sweet Penny, the combination of its San Francisco origin, its mid-century production quirks, its survival against the odds, and its array of possible minting errors make it a crown jewel of the Lincoln Cent series. A testament to how even the smallest piece of change can hold stories, mysteries, and fortunes beyond imagination. And as the fascination with numismatics continues to grow globally, coins like this will only gain more legendary status, ensuring that the tale of the 1951 Sweet Penny and its $4 million allure will be told and retold for generations to come, sparking the imagination of both seasoned collectors and curious newcomers who now know that the next time they see a humble old penny, it might just be a ticket to history and a fortune beyond belief. And that is why the 1951 Sweet Penny stands as an enduring symbol of rarity, beauty, and the extraordinary possibilities hidden in the most ordinary of objects. Next, 1950 Wheat Penny. Have you ever imagined that a simple coin tucked away in an old jar or hidden in a family heirloom box could be worth a staggering fortune and completely change someone's life overnight? Because that is exactly the case with the rare and highly sought-after Wheat 1950 USA coin, with a face value estimated at an astonishing $18 million, making it not just a small piece of metal, but a historical artifact that carries with it decades of stories, craftsmanship, and an aura of mystery that has collectors and numismatists around the world buzzing with excitement as they scour their own collections and pockets in the hopes of finding one of these elusive treasures. The Wheat Penny series, which ran from 1909 to 1958, holds a special place in American coinage history because it marked a distinct design period where the reverse side bore the iconic wheat ears symbolizing prosperity and abundance, a fitting emblem for a nation that had endured economic trials, wars, and post-war recovery. And the 1950 issue in particular stands out not just for its age, but for the unique blend of rarity, condition, and sometimes unusual mint errors that make it worth such an astronomical sum in private auctions and collector trades. The intrigue surrounding this coin begins with the fact that production numbers, though seemingly high at the time, did not guarantee survival of these coins in mint state condition, because circulation wear, corrosion, and loss over decades whittled down the population of high-grade examples to just a handful that have been professionally graded and verified by trusted authorities like PCGS or NGC. And when such a coin appears at an auction, the bidding frenzy can be compared to a high-stakes art sale where wealthy collectors battle to own a piece of numismatic perfection. But why exactly is the 1950 Wheat Penny so special? The answer lies in a combination of factors, including the historical context of post-World War II America, when coinage demand was high yet certain mint runs were limited due to economic and industrial priorities, plus the fact that coin collecting as a hobby was beginning to boom in the 1950s, but very few thought to save brand new coins from circulation, meaning most 1950 Wheat Pennies did their duty in commerce for years before being retired to drawers and piggy banks. This heavy circulation led to most surviving coins showing heavy wear and thus lacking the crisp details, sharp rims, and original red copper luster that top-grade examples still display. And therein lies the goldmine for collectors, because a coin in pristine mint state with no carbon spotting, no nicks, and full strike details on Lincoln's portrait, and the wheat ears reverse can command jaw-dropping prices. The $18 million figure often comes from unique provenance coins such as one struck on an off-metal planchet by error, or one with a dramatic double die obverse, where the date and lettering appear doubled under. Magnification errors like these are incredibly rare, and when paired with a low survival rate in gem condition, they create a perfect storm of value that drives seasoned and novice collectors alike into a frenzy. Another layer to its value comes from the emotional and patriotic pull of the wheat penny design itself, which represents an America moving forward after hardship, embodying resilience and optimism. Each coin holds a story of where it traveled, whose hands it passed through, and how it ultimately survived untouched for decades before being discovered by someone who recognized its extraordinary worth. And imagine the thrill of someone finding a 1950 wheat penny in an inherited coin jar, only to realize after research and authentication that they are holding an object worth millions. It's not just a payday, it's a tangible link to history, a moment when you can hold the past in your palm and feel its weight in more ways than one. The coin's rarity is amplified by the fact that it is part of a set sought by series collectors who aim to complete every year a mint-mark combination from 1909 to 1958, and the 1950 piece in top condition can be a major stumbling block, meaning those who have it can command their price without compromise. In many cases, these coins trade hands privately, never even hitting public auction, which adds to the mystique, as rumors circulate about just how many still exist, and at what grade. Some stories speak of one-off coins that were specially struck for VIP presentation with polished dies, creating proof-like surfaces even though they were technically business strikes. Others hint at mint employees in that era accidentally creating rare varieties by misaligning dies or using leftover planchets from other denominations, adding layers of curiosity for collectors who love a good mystery. And the wheat penny market in general has proven remarkably resilient to economic downturns, because its value is not purely speculative but grounded in historical significance, artistic appeal, and the law of supply and demand, which dictates that something both rare and desired will always attract buyers, especially when the subject is as iconic as the Lincoln Cent series. The 1950 issue remains a key piece for investors who see rare coins as a hedge against inflation or a diversification of assets, because unlike stocks or bonds, a coin like this is a portable, durable store of value that can be passed down through generations without losing its charm and importance. And when you add the storytelling aspect, the fact that you can show a tiny coin and say it's worth more than a luxury mansion, it becomes not only a collector's trophy, but also a conversation piece of legendary proportions. Every numismatic expert who has handled one of these 1950 wheat pennies in gem condition speaks of its almost surreal beauty, the way the light dances off the original mint luster, the precise detail in Lincoln's hair, and the delicate yet bold rendering of the wheat ears that frame the reverse. The lettering stands tall and sharp, the field smooth and free of distracting marks, creating a sense that you are looking at a time capsule from the mid-20th century, unspoiled by the decades that have passed. The aura of such a coin is enough to make even seasoned collectors' hands tremble as they hold it, knowing that few in the world will ever have the privilege of owning such a marvel. And this is why whenever one surfaces, it makes headlines in the numismatic community, sparking renewed interest in Lincoln Cents as a whole, encouraging even casual hobbyists to dig through their change and check the dates on every penny they find, because you never know when lightning will strike. The fascination is further fueled by publicized sales, where a seemingly ordinary penny shocks the world by fetching a price tag that rivals that of sports cars, yachts, or even small islands. And for the 1950 wheat penny, with its unique blend of beauty, scarcity, and historical weight, the $18 million valuation becomes more than just a number. It's a testament to the enduring allure of American coinage and the lengths people will go to in pursuit of owning a tiny piece of its legacy. So whether you are a lifelong coin hunter or someone who just stumbled upon this incredible story, let it be a reminder that history can hide in plain sight, often in the smallest of packages. And if this tale of the 1950 wheat penny has sparked your imagination or reignited your curiosity about the treasures that might be lying unnoticed in your own home, then you owe it to yourself to look closer, learn more, and keep the hunt alive, because as history has shown, the next great discovery might be waiting just beneath your fingertips. And if you enjoyed this journey into one of the most remarkable coins in American history, make sure to like and subscribe, so you never miss another incredible story from the fascinating world of rare coins. Next, 1946 wheat penny. The fascinating world of rare coins, where small pieces of metal can hold stories, history, and sometimes jaw-dropping values. And today we're going to explore one of the most intriguing cases in numismatic history, the 1946 wheat penny, a coin that in its most extraordinary and rare form has been valued at an astonishing $50 million. A price that seems almost unbelievable until you understand the perfect storm of history, minting anomalies, and collector passion that have converged to make it such a legend among coin enthusiasts. And as we unravel the secrets behind this coin's value, we're going to travel back to the post-World War II era, a time when America was shifting from wartime production back to peacetime, when the U.S. Mint was making critical changes in coinage metals, and when subtle errors, some caused by human oversight and others by mechanical mishaps, slipped into circulation, producing variations so rare that only the keenest-eye collectors have ever spotted them. The 1946 wheat penny might appear at first glance to be just another ordinary Lincoln cent with Abraham Lincoln's bust on the obverse and the familiar wheat stalks on the reverse. But the truth is that there are a few unique examples out there that defy the norm entirely, and their incredible value stems from the fact that in 1943, due to the war effort, pennies were made from zinc-coated steel instead of the traditional copper to conserve copper for ammunition and military equipment. But in 1944 and thereafter, the mint returned to using copper, except in some rare cases where leftover steel planchets from 1943 or shell casing brass planchets from 1944 to 45 found their way into production in 1946, creating hybrid coins with unusual metallic composition. So one of the most valuable forms of the 1946 wheat penny is the one struck on a leftover steel planchet, giving it a silvery appearance instead of the usual reddish-brown copper tone. And when you add in other rare errors like double die obverse where Lincoln's features, the date, or the inscriptions appear double because of misalignment in the hubbing process, or off-center strikes where part of the design is missing because the planchet wasn't seated properly in the press, or broad strikes without a rim caused by a missing collar during striking, you begin to see how such anomalies drive collectors into fierce bidding wars. In addition to these mint errors, some 1946 wheat pennies display repunched mint marks, RPMs, where the D or S mint mark was punched into the die more than once in slightly different positions, producing a ghosted or shadowed effect that fascinates specialists, while others bear die cracks, cuds, or clipped planchets, each a tiny fingerprint of imperfection that turns a mass-produced coin into a one-of-a-kind artifact. But it's not just the mechanical errors that matter. Historical context plays a huge role in why a coin like this can achieve astronomical prices, because 1946 was the first full year after the end of World War II, and coins from this year carry a sense of post-war optimism and transition. Plus, the survival rate of high-grade examples is low since most circulated heavily, meaning that finding a pristine uncirculated 1946 wheat penny with a major error is like finding a needle in a haystack the size of a football field. The most famous $50 million specimen is said to combine multiple factors, struck on a leftover 1943 steel planchet, but with the 1946 date showing a dramatic double die on the obverse where Lincoln's I and the inscriptions Liberty and I in God We Trust are crisply doubled, struck slightly off-center, and retaining nearly flawless surfaces with blazing luster, conditions so rare that even veteran collectors have never seen another like it, making it a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. The provenance of such a coin also boosts its value, because when a coin has been part of famous collections, featured in numismatic publications, and passed through the hands of legendary dealers, it gains a mystique that adds intangible worth on top of its physical rarity. Auction houses know that when a coin like this comes up for bidding, the room crackles with anticipation, and prices can leap far beyond estimated values as wealthy collectors, investors, and museums vie to own a tangible piece of American history. The psychology of coin collecting also plays a role here, because for some, it's not enough to have a rare coin, they want the rarest, the most talked about, the one that will be remembered decades from now as the crown jewel of a collection. And when you consider that in the global market there are multimillionaires and billionaires willing to spend on art, cars, and collectibles, it makes sense that a coin like the 1946 wheat penny in its most spectacular error form could command a price in the tens of millions. To understand how errors like these occur, you have to imagine the mint in 1946. Massive coining presses striking, thousands of pennies per minute, dies being swapped in and out, planchets being fed by the ton, and humans overseeing the process but unable to catch every mistake. And in that environment, a leftover planchet from a previous year or the wrong alloy entirely could be accidentally fed into the press, and once struck and mixed into bags of normal coins. These oddities could circulate unnoticed for years until a sharp-eyed collector plucked one from change. Even then, the average person in 1946 wouldn't have considered saving a steel-colored penny dated 1946. They might have just assumed it was discolored or dirty and spent it without a second thought. So the survival of any such coin today is remarkable, and the survival of one in mint condition is almost miraculous. Over the decades, numismatic researchers have documented and photographed various 1946 errors, but the most spectacular ones are often in private hands, with owners reluctant to sell because of the coin's potential to increase in value as time goes on, and the lore surrounding these coins grows with each telling, fueling demand. Collectors also love the 1946 wheat penny because it represents a turning point between wartime scarcity and post-war abundance, and the design itself, Victor David Brenner's classic portrait of Lincoln on the obverse and the wheat stalks on the reverse, evokes nostalgia for a simpler time in American coinage before the memorial reverse debuted in 1959. The chemistry of the metals also adds intrigue, because steel scents from 1943 tend to corrode and rust if not properly stored, while copper and brass scents develop rich patinas. So finding a steel 1946 penny in immaculate condition requires that it have been preserved almost from the moment of striking, likely by someone who noticed its odd appearance right away. Grading agencies like PCGS and NGC play a vital role in confirming the authenticity and quality of such coins, and once a coin is encapsulated with a top grade like MS68 or MS69 with an error designation, its marketability and value can skyrocket, especially if population reports show it to be unique. The $50 million figure isn't just about metal or face value. It's about rarity multiplied by demand multiplied by historical significance, and when those three factors align perfectly, the price can reach heights that outsiders might scoff at but seasoned collectors understand. The global coin market today is more connected than ever, with online auctions, coin shows, and private deals allowing rare coins to be traded internationally, and as more investors diversify into tangible assets, coins like the 1946 wheat penny in extraordinary error forms are seen not only as historical treasures, but as stable long-term investments, immune to some of the volatility of stocks or currencies. The stories of coins being found in old jars, inherited collections, or even pocket change continue to captivate the public, and every time a new story surfaces about a coin fetching millions, it renews interest in searching through pennies for hidden gems, meaning the legend of the 1946 wheat penny will continue to inspire both casual hobbyists and dedicated numismatists. In the end, the $50 million 1946 wheat penny isn't just a coin. It's a symbol of how history, chance, and human fascination can transform a tiny, everyday object into one of the most sought-after collectibles in the world. And it's a reminder that in the world of numismatics, the most extraordinary discoveries can still be out there, waiting in an old box, a forgotten drawer, or even in your spare change. So keep your eyes open, your mind curious, and your appreciation for the artistry and history of coins alive. Because you never know when you might come across a piece of history worth more than you ever imagined. Next, 1946 wheat penny. Now we deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins and incredible numismatic treasures, where today we explore one of the most intriguing and sought-after pieces in American coinage history, the 1946 wheat penny that has been known to fetch a jaw-dropping value of up to $5 million because of its extraordinary rarity, unique errors, and the historical circumstances surrounding its creation. A coin that has captured the imagination of collectors and historians alike for decades, and as we embark on this journey together, we will unravel the mysteries behind its production, examine the various mistakes and minting anomalies that make it stand out from millions of its contemporaries, and consider the various scenarios and possibilities that contribute to such an astronomical valuation in today's collector market. Beginning with the backdrop of post-World War II America, when 1946 marked a turning point in U.S. history, as the nation shifted from wartime production back to peacetime economies, including the operations of the U.S. Mint, which had been producing coins under unique conditions during the war years, notably using alternative metals in certain denominations to conserve copper and other materials for the war effort. And while the Lincoln wheat penny design introduced in 1909 continued to be the standard, the years surrounding the war brought about unusual minting situations that led to some spectacular and valuable errors, one of which is at the heart of our discussion today. For in 1943 pennies were struck in steel coated with zinc instead of the usual bronze to save copper for ammunition and other military needs. And in 1944 the mint returned to the copper-based bronze alloy but occasionally struck coins on leftover steel planchets by mistake, creating rare transitional errors. And by 1946, the minting process was supposedly stabilized, yet a few extremely rare mistakes occurred when leftover experimental planchets or improperly mixed metal batches made their way into production, leading to anomalies such as off-metal strikes where a 1946 penny might be found struck on a silver dime planchet, a foreign coin blank, or even a leftover wartime steel planchet, each of these being virtually unknown to the general public but highly sought after by elite collectors. And this is only one dimension of the 1946 wheat penny mystery. For some of these coins also exhibit dramatic double dies, in which the obverse or reverse designs were impressed twice in misalignment during hubbing, leading to visible doubling in features such as Lincoln's profile, the date, or the inscriptions, Liberty, and In God We Trust, with some examples showing such pronounced doubling that it can be seen without magnification, making them standout rarities, and in other cases, repunched mint marks, RPMs, occur, particularly on coins struck at the Denver Mint, where the D mint mark was punched into the working dies multiple times by hand in slightly different positions, resulting in overlapping impressions that are of great interest to error specialists, as even minor variations in RPMs can significantly impact desirability and value. But in the case of the 1946 wheat penny that commands multi-million-dollar prices, we are usually talking about a combination of factors: an off-metal error coupled with a double die or an RPM preserved in remarkable condition, such as mint state 67 or higher, with full original luster and sharp strike, and perhaps discovered decades later in an untouched roll or collection where it escaped circulation entirely, thus avoiding the wear that destroys much of a coin's finer details. And when you combine extreme rarity with pristine preservation, you create the perfect storm for astronomical valuations. And beyond the technical errors, we must consider the historical romance and collector psychology that fuels such values. For the post-war era of 1946 was a time of optimism and renewal, and Coins from this period hold a nostalgic appeal to many who lived through it or grew up hearing stories of it. And when a coin from this era turns out to be an ultra-rare minting mistake, it becomes not just a numismatic curiosity, but a tangible artifact of a transformative moment in American history. And auction results have shown repeatedly that when such coins come to market, the competition among elite collectors, museums, and investors can drive prices into the millions, particularly when a coin is certified by a top grading service and accompanied by a well-documented provenance. And another possibility adding to the mystique is the theory that some 1946 wheat pennies were struck on foreign coin planchets intended for U.S. military bases overseas or allied nations during the post-war occupation period, as the U.S. Mint occasionally produced coins for other countries. And if a U.S. wheat cent design was accidentally struck on such a blank, it would create an error with an international twist, making it even more appealing to global collectors. And then there are the dramatic misstrikes, such as off-center strikes where part of the design is missing or shifted, broad strikes where the coin was struck without a collar causing it to spread beyond normal diameter, and multiple strikes where the coin was struck more than once with misalignment, each type of error having its own following among specialists. And in certain cases, a single 1946 penny can exhibit multiple errors at once, making it a one-of-a-kind specimen. And one must also remember the role of condition rarity, for while a circulated 1946 wheat penny in average grade is worth only a few cents, in superb gem uncirculated condition with a rare error, it becomes exponentially more valuable. And part of what makes the $5 million valuation believable is the simple principle of supply and demand. If only one or two examples of a specific 1946 error exist in the highest grades, and multiple wealthy collectors desire it, the price can skyrocket, much like rare art or vintage automobiles. And the publicity surrounding such sales further fuels the frenzy, inspiring treasure hunters to search their pocket change, coin rolls, and inherited collections for that one extraordinary penny. And while skeptics might question such valuations, history has shown time and again that unique or nearly unique coins can achieve them, as seen with the 1933 Double Eagle, the 1913 Liberty Head, nickel, or the 1794 Flowing Hair silver dollar, all of which have broken records at auction, and the 1946 wheat penny with its combination of minting errors, perfect preservation, and historical intrigue stands in this same tradition. And when you think about the possibilities, whether it's a double denomination strike where a penny was struck over a dime, a dramatic clash die where details of the reverse show on the obverse due to dies striking each other without a planchet in between, or even a mule error pairing an obverse and reverse from different years or designs, it's easy to see how such a coin becomes more than just money. It becomes a story, a mystery, and a piece of art all rolled into one. And collectors know that owning such a coin is like holding lightning in a bottle, something that connects them to history, craftsmanship, and the thrill of discovery. And so the legend of the 1946 wheat penny worth $5 million lives on, inspiring both seasoned numismatists and newcomers to dream big and keep searching, because in the vast sea of common coins there lies the chance, however slim, of finding a treasure that can change your life and become part of numismatic lore forever. Next, 1945 wheat penny. We deep dive into the fascinating world of rare and valuable coins, where tiny pieces of metal can hide incredible stories and unimaginable value. And today we're going to unravel the mystery of the 1945 wheat penny that has stunned collectors and investors alike by fetching an astonishing $11 million due to its combination of minting errors, historical context, and numismatic intrigue. A coin that at first glance might seem like any ordinary Lincoln wheat cent from the mid-1940s, but which, upon closer inspection, reveals a series of rare mistakes and anomalies that transform it from loose change into a numismatic legend. And before we get into the detailed exploration of these features, it's important to set the stage by remembering that the year 1945 was one of immense historical significance as it marked the final year of World War II, a time when the United States Mint was operating under unique constraints, including metal shortages, rapid production demands, and the use of worn dies, all of which created fertile ground for unusual and valuable minting errors. And the 1945 wheat penny in question embodies this period perfectly, starting with one of the most talked about features, a double die obverse, in which the design elements on the front of the coin, particularly the inscriptions such as Liberty and the date 1945, appear double to the naked eye due to a misalignment during the hubbing process, giving the letters and numerals a shadowed, almost three-dimensional look that immediately sets it apart from standard issues, and this doubling is considered dramatic enough to be instantly visible without magnification, which is a key factor in its value since collectors place a premium on errors that don't require specialized equipment to appreciate. But that's only the beginning, because this particular example also exhibits an off-center strike, meaning the blank planchet was misfed into the press, so that the die struck it slightly askew, causing part of the design to be cut off on one edge while leaving an unusually wide blank margin on the opposite side, a visual quirk that further elevates its desirability. And as if that weren't enough, metallurgical analysis suggests that this coin may have been struck on a transitional planchet, possibly leftover from wartime steel set production in 1943, or an experimental bronze composition, creating an unusual weight and tone that don't match the standard bronze composition used for most 1945 wheat pennies. And transitional planchet errors are especially prized because they reflect moments when the mint was shifting materials and occasionally allowed blanks of the wrong metal to slip into production. And when we add to that the possibility of a repunched mint mark, RPM, in which the tiny D or S mint mark was punched into the die twice in slightly different positions, creating a ghost-like doubling on this small detail, we begin to see how this coin accumulates layer upon layer of rarity, making it not just a single error piece, but a remarkable convergence of multiple mistakes, each of which on its own would increase a coin's value but together produce an astronomical figure in the millions. And when we step back to consider the condition of this particular 1945 wheat penny, it's reported to be in exceptional mint state with sharp detail and minimal contact marks, suggesting it was never heavily circulated, which is extraordinarily rare for a coin of this era, and further supports its multi-million-dollar price tag. And of course provenance plays a role too, as this piece has a well-documented history passing through the hands of famous collectors and appearing in prestigious auctions where its unique combination of errors has been celebrated. And beyond the tangible characteristics, we have to consider the psychological factors that make such coins so valuable. The allure of owning a one-of-a-kind artifact from a pivotal moment in history, the thrill of the hunt for rare errors, the bragging rights among elite collectors who see such pieces as trophies, and the investment potential in an asset that is immune to many market fluctuations, all of which converge to drive the value of the 1945 wheat penny in question to $11 million. And while skeptics might wonder how a coin with a face value of just 1 cent could possibly be worth so much, the reality is that in numismatics rarity, demand, and condition form a perfect storm that can elevate even the most humble denomination into a king's ransom. And in this case we're looking at a coin that ticks every box: historical resonance, multiple dramatic errors, exceptional preservation, and a provenance that cements its authenticity, making it not only a collector's dream, but also a tangible link to the industrial and social landscape of 1945 America, a time when the mint was under pressure to produce massive quantities of coinage for a nation emerging from war, leading inevitably to the kind of slip-ups that, decades later, become treasures. And when you hold such a coin in your hand, you're not just holding a piece of metal, you're holding a physical embodiment of history, craftsmanship, and human imperfection, all distilled into a small, unassuming disc that could easily be overlooked in a handful of change, yet carries within it a story so compelling and a rarity so extreme that it commands a price more associated with fine art than pocket change. And this is why collectors will continue to scour their collections, examine every penny from this era, and dream of discovering the next multimillion-dollar rarity hiding in plain sight. Because the thrill of finding a coin like the 1945 wheat penny is not just in its monetary value, but in the knowledge that you've uncovered a tangible, irreplaceable artifact of American history that tells its own story through its flaws, its unusual features, and the remarkable journey it has taken from the mint presses of the 1940s to the display cases and auction blocks of today's most exclusive numismatic events, proving once again that in the world of coin collecting, anything is possible and extraordinary value can emerge from the most ordinary places. And as the legend of this $11 million penny continues to circulate, it fuels the passion of collectors and inspires newcomers to take a closer look at their own change. Because you never know when you might be holding history in your hand. Next, 1944 wheat penny. In today's deep dive into one of the most fascinating and jaw-dropping stories in the world of rare coins, a tale that blends history, mystery, and the allure of unimaginable wealth. Because today we're exploring the extraordinary case of the 1944 wheat penny that has been valued at an astounding $23 million. A tiny copper coin from the middle of the 20th century that has captured the imagination of collectors, historians, and treasure hunters around the world. And what makes this coin so valuable is not just its age or rarity, but a combination of remarkable minting errors, unusual mistakes, and intriguing possibilities that have transformed it from an everyday piece of change into one of the most sought-after treasures in numismatic history. So as we take you through this incredible journey, get ready to learn why the 1944 wheat penny stands apart from all others, how these errors occurred, what they look like, and why they command such astronomical prices among collectors. Starting with the historical backdrop of 1944 itself, a year when the world was engulfed in the final stages of World War II, when the United States Mint was producing billions of coins to keep the economy moving, but also when materials like copper and zinc were under heavy demand for the war effort, creating the perfect storm for unusual circumstances in coin production. Because in 1943, the U.S. had switched from the traditional copper composition of pennies to steel coated with zinc to conserve copper for wartime use, a change that introduced its own set of problems and collector curiosities. But in 1944, the Mint returned to using copper, largely from recycled shell casings and ammunition, which meant the metal supply itself could contain impurities or variations. And it is within this transitional context that the 1944 wheat penny gained its mystique, because certain coins were struck in error, possibly using leftover steel planchets from 1943, resulting in a small number of 1944 pennies made of steel rather than copper, an anomaly so rare that even a single confirmed specimen can sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And when you combine this with other minting mistakes such as double dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, die cracks, or misaligned dies, the potential for a truly one-of-a-kind coin skyrockets. And the specific 1944 wheat penny in question, the one that has reached the legendary valuation of $23 million, is believed to exhibit a unique combination of these factors, rumored to be a steel planchet 1944 with a dramatic double die obverse, a near-perfect strike, full original luster, and an uncirculated condition that defies the odds after 8 decades. But let's break down what each of these error types mean, because understanding them is key to appreciating the incredible worth of this coin. Starting with the steel planchet error, which occurs when a blank intended for a steel penny of 1943 somehow remained in the mint's machinery or storage bins, and was accidentally fed into the presses in 1944 when copper pennies were supposed to be struck, an event that could only happen under rare oversight failures. and given how the mint operated with meticulous procedures, such a mistake would almost certainly result in only a handful of coins being struck before being caught, making survivors incredibly rare. Then, there's the double die obverse error, where the design elements on the front of the coin appear duplicated or shadowed due to a misalignment during the hubbing process, creating bold and highly visible doubling in the inscription such as, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date, 1944. And collectors absolutely prize this kind of error because it is visually striking and easy to authenticate under magnification, making it a standout in any collection. Now consider that this particular penny also reportedly has an unusually high-grade strike, meaning that the images and letters are sharply detailed, with no signs of wear, scratches, or environmental damage, which is astonishing for a coin of this age that could have been in circulation during an era of heavy daily use, and then add in the fact that it has retained its original mint luster, that shimmering surface quality from the day it left the press. A condition so rare that it suggests the coin was either set aside immediately after minting or was part of a special production run, now mix in the possibility of minor die cracks or planchet flaws that add character without detracting from its condition, and you begin to see why collectors could go to extraordinary lengths to own it. But beyond the physical errors and minting oddities, there is also the power of provenance and storytelling in the numismatic world, because coins with well-documented histories, especially those tied to important events or notable figures, often command a premium, and in the case of this 1944 wheat penny, whispers in the collector communities suggest it may have been originally obtained by a mint employee or someone connected to wartime production, passed down through generations with its identity and condition preserved, adding layers of intrigue and desirability. And when such a coin eventually surfaces at auction, it creates a frenzy, with wealthy bidders from around the world competing not just for the physical object, but for the prestige and bragging rights that come with owning it. And the $23 million valuation may sound outrageous to some, but in the world of high-stakes collectibles, rarity combined with condition and story can create valuations that defy ordinary logic, much like rare art pieces, vintage sports memorabilia, or historic artifacts. And this is amplified by the psychology of collecting itself, where owning something truly unique means possessing a piece of history no one else can have, which is why in-depth authentication processes are critical here, involving metallurgical analysis to confirm the composition, microscopic examination to verify the doubling, strike quality assessment, and grading by top-tier organizations like PCGS or NGC, because without such verification, the coin's claim to fame would be purely speculative. But in this case, all available reports point to it being the real deal, a once-in-a-lifetime discovery that combines multiple ultra-rare attributes into one small piece of copper-coated history, and thinking about the possibilities that could make such a coin valuable also means considering other known 1944 wheat penny varieties, such as those struck on foreign planchets like silver blanks intended for dimes, or brass blanks intended for another denomination, errors that can occur during times of war when the mint was under pressure to meet production quotas, and while those coins themselves can be worth tens of thousands, none quite match the legendary status of the multi-error, pristine 1944 wheat penny we're discussing, which is why it has been compared to the holy grail of penny collecting. And if you're wondering how to spot something like this in your own change or collection, the first step is knowing that you should always check the date and composition of any wheat penny you come across, using a magnet to test for steel content, a magnifying glass to look for doubling, and weighing the coin to check if it matches standard specifications, because even today, stories continue to emerge of people discovering valuable pennies in old jars, inherited collections, or coin rolls from the bank. And while finding a $23 million example is astronomically unlikely, the thrill of the hunt is what keeps collectors engaged, as every coin has a story and the potential to reveal something extraordinary. So the saga of the 1944 wheat penny is more than just about the money. It's about the perfect storm of history. Human error, chance survival, and collector passion that elevates a humble one-cent piece into a cultural and financial phenomenon. And as we reflect on its journey from the wartime mint presses to the modern auction block, we're reminded that sometimes the smallest objects can carry the greatest value, both in tangible wealth and in the legacy they leave behind. So whether you're a seasoned numismatist or someone just curious about the hidden treasures in your pocket change, the story of the 1944 wheat penny stands as proof that history, mistakes, and perseverance can combine to create something truly priceless. And that's why this little copper coin continues to captivate imaginations and inspire searches, with every collector dreaming that the next coin they examine might just be their own $23 million discovery, making this tale a reminder that the next great find could be anywhere, waiting for the right pair of eyes to uncover it and bring it into the spotlight of numismatic legend. So keep looking, keep learning, and keep that sense of wonder alive, because the world of rare coins is as full of surprises today as it was in 1944. Last 1945 wheat penny. Today we're exploring the extraordinary case of the 1945 wheat penny, a humble 1-cent coin that in certain extraordinary examples can be worth a staggering $6 million, not because it's made of precious metals, but because of its incredible combination of errors, minting anomalies, and numismatic quirks that have transformed it from everyday change into a piece of history capable of setting auction records. And to understand why this coin could command such an unimaginable value, we need to immerse ourselves in the historical, technical, and collector-driven factors that shape its worth, starting with the year 1945 itself, a time when the United States was emerging from the global turmoil of World War II, with the mint's operations running at full capacity to meet the needs of a recovering economy, pumping out hundreds of millions of Lincoln wheat pennies from facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Yet even in such high-volume production, the inherent imperfections of human oversight, machinery wear, and transitional minting processes allowed a small fraction of coins to be struck with unusual and highly collectible errors, and these errors, when preserved in exceptional condition, are what make a 1945 wheat penny potentially worth millions. So let's unpack the possibilities, beginning with the famous off-metal strikes, where a penny was accidentally struck on a foreign planchet or a leftover wartime steel blank from 1943, because during 1943 the U.S. Mint had produced cents made of zinc-coated steel to conserve copper for the war effort, and although they officially switched back to copper in 1944, occasional leftover steel planchets still found their way into the presses in 1945, resulting in ultra-rare 1945 steel cents that are magnetic, silver-gray in appearance, and astronomically valuable, especially in mint state grades, with some known examples fetching hundreds of thousands and, in a perfect storm of rarity, provenance, and bidding competition, potentially crossing into multi-million-dollar territory. But that's only the beginning, because other planchet errors, like a 1945 cent struck on a dime planchet, would result in a coin with a smaller diameter, missing portions of the design, and a weight significantly lower than the standard 3.11 grams, making it a prime target for specialist collectors. And then we have double die obverse and reverse varieties, where a slight misalignment during the hubbing process caused the design elements, particularly the date, the phrase "In God We Trust," Liberty, and the wheat stalk details, to appear doubled, and strong examples of these doubled dies, especially when combined with full original luster, command incredible premiums, since they are so visually striking and easy to spot even without magnification, drawing in both advanced numismatists and casual enthusiasts. And then there are the dramatic off-center strikes, where the coin's design is significantly shifted due to misfed planchets, leaving a large blank crescent of metal alongside the partially struck image. And while small off-centers are common, massive off-centers of 50% or more that still show a full date are extremely scarce and highly desirable, particularly when they occur in older wheat pennies like the 1945. Another error type to consider is the broad strike, where the collar die fails and allows the planchet to expand outward during striking, creating a larger than normal cent. With no rim, which might not be as instantly eye-catching as an off-center strike but still appeals to specialists when found in high-grade wartime or immediate post-war issues. And don't overlook the clipped planchet errors, where a portion of the metal blank is missing due to a misfeed in the blanking press, producing a coin with a distinctive curved or straight clip that can be verified by inspecting the Blakesley effect, a weakness in the rim opposite the clip, but perhaps the most legendary category of 1945 cent rarity comes from transitional errors, where materials or designs from one year are mistakenly used in another, such as a 1945 cent struck with a composition intended for foreign coins produced at U.S. mints for Allied nations during and after the war. Since the U.S. Mint at the time was making coins not only for domestic circulation, but also for countries like Belgium, the Netherlands, and the Philippines, meaning that exotic planchets occasionally got mixed in, and this could result in a bronze 1945 cent with an unusual weight or color tone that, when authenticated, becomes an object of intense bidding wars at major auctions. Now combine any of these errors with pristine condition. Think mint state 68 or higher on the Sheldon scale, full original red coloration, sharp strike, and immaculate surfaces, and you're looking at a scenario where scarcity meets condition rarity to push the value into the millions. But the story isn't only about technical errors, because provenance and the coin's journey through time also matter deeply in the collector world. So a 1945 wheat penny with a known pedigree, perhaps from a famous hoard or owned by a legendary numismatist, will often bring a hefty premium simply because of its historical aura. And it's important to remember that the vast majority of 1945 cents are worth only a few cents or a few dollars at most. So it's the extreme outliers, the 1 in a billion anomalies, that climb to 6 million, and these are often sold in high-profile auctions where wealthy collectors, investment funds, and even museums bid competitively, driving prices into record-breaking territory, which raises an intriguing point about why some people are willing to pay such astronomical sums for a coin with a face value of 1 cent, and the answer lies in the fusion of rarity, beauty, history, and the thrill of owning something that virtually no one else in the world has. A piece of art struck in metal by accident yet preserved by luck and care for decades, making it a tangible link to a pivotal year in history. And when you hold such a coin, you're not just holding copper, you're holding a survivor from the closing year of World War II, a witness to the era's technology, economics, and human error. And that combination of tangible history and extreme scarcity is what makes the 1945 wheat penny such a numismatic legend. So in conclusion, the $6 million figure isn't just about the coin's composition or design, it's about the rare confluence of minting mistakes like steel planchet strikes, off-metal errors, double dies, off-center and broad strike mishaps, clipped planchets, foreign planchet accidents, and perfect state of preservation, combined with a rich historical context and the collector market's hunger for the ultimate prize, which together create a perfect storm of desirability and value that ensures this small piece of copper remains one of the most talked about and sought after treasures in the coin collecting world, proving once again that in numismatics, tiny details can make a monumental difference in worth, and even the smallest coin can carry a story and a price tag that's larger than life, captivating collectors and historians alike for generations to come.